was worth the price of admission alone.
Turning to the baseball podcast. News, views, and opinions through Kiwi eyes.
They try to turn it, and they do turn it. On to first, a double play. Oh, my goodness.
Hey everyone, welcome to our very first Turning 2 podcast. We are the Baseball New Zealand media team, Ian, Dale, Austin. Turning 2, you might ask, what the hell is that all about? It's about turning a double play. It's just a slang way of saying a double play, so we're putting 2 outs on one play. We're going to talk about all things baseball in this podcast on a weekly basis, so we're going to cover off the local game here in New Zealand. We're going to talk Major League Baseball and of course the Auckland Tuatara, which are now into their first off-season. We'll get into all of those things across the 20-minute, half-an-hour podcast each week, and discuss and throw out opinion between the three of us. So we're going to start today with spring training. So spring training is happening in the United States. Of course, we've had a number of players taking part over summer with the Auckland Tuatara in the ABL that are off to spring training. Only one has been in action as yet, Major League Spring Training, Nick Tannerley. Yep. Austin, tell us a little bit about how he's gone through the first few games in spring training.
Yeah, he really started off well. His first game, he had a home run, went 1 for 3 with 3 RBIs, so it's a nice 3-run home run. For him, it's an interesting story because he is pretty much a major league talent at this point. He spent last year a combination between AA and AAA, and in both levels he tore it up. He batted 189 in AA, or 180 in AA and 189 in AAA. So he is very much ready for the MLB. It's just very much a case of he's position blocked. His 2 positions are second base and third base, and the Astros have 2 of the best players in the league at those positions. So it's kind of a tough situation for him. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes forward, whether he'll make the roster right out of spring training, because I feel his talent is at that level, but it might just come down to the roster makeup.
Now, I wonder whether he becomes sort of trade bait almost, because he is blocked, as you say, behind 2 of the best players in baseball. And, if the Astros are looking at going all in and trying to acquire pieces somewhere else in their roster, whether he becomes a viable option for a team that's rebuilding or a younger team where maybe they're not so deep in the middle infield positions or corner infield. I guess a lot of focus is going to be in this part of the world on Kyle Gogoski, New Zealand star, played in New Zealand Diamond Blacks last World Baseball Classic. Was really impressive with the Tuatara for 3 or 4 starts at the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm. He's off with the Philadelphia Phillies organisation, and minor league spring training starts in a day or 2. What's your expectation, and how much are you looking forward to seeing how Kyle develops this year at the next level up?
I'm really excited about the prospects of Kyle. He had a fantastic season in rookie ball last year, pitching in 10 games with an ERA under 3, and just pitched really well, and we saw that with the Tuatara, as you said, following through. There's a chance that this season he may go into just short A season, but there also is a chance that he may go into the long A season, which I think would be just fantastic for his development. And I think we're going to see in the future. He's definitely a major league prospect in my eyes, and a lot of people here in New Zealand in their eyes. Obviously, the Philadelphia Phillies put an innings or game limit on him for the Tuatara, so they obviously rate him highly.
Yeah, I think the Tuatara were very lucky to get Kyle Gogoski even for a limited campaign. He had a big season, his first full year playing professional baseball, and as you say, they do rate him highly. So to get him and to have him in the roster, albeit in an abbreviated format, was a pretty big coup for the organisation. There are other Tuatara players that are going to be partaking in minor league spring training. We know some of those minor league players that came down, the likes of Eric Jenkins and Taylor Schneider and Zach Clark, etc. What do we expect from those guys, and where are they going to be?
A wide range, but usually in the low A to high A level of the minor leagues right now. We've got Eric Jenkins, who was a very highly touted prospect for the Rangers. He was taken in the 2nd round, so they obviously saw a lot in him. For him, he spent time between low A and high A last year. He batted 291s and tore it up in low A, but then struggled a little more in high A. So I think for him, it'll be really transitioning to the higher level. I would expect him to go back into high A coming out of the minor league spring training, and we all know his speed and his fielding is just off the chart. So it's really if he can transition that back to really help him out. Then you also have Taylor Schneider, who's another guy who was in low A. Saw a lot of power when he was playing for the Tuatara. His average was pretty good, so again, I think it would just be having another consistent season in low A.
And Zach Clark, we saw the back end of the campaign, the raw power, and the guy can hit a ball a very long way. I guess the key for him is putting together quality at-bats regularly, not striking out as much.
As you're saying, the power was there last year. He had 8 home runs, again in low A in 2018. but the average was under 250, which isn't terrible, but I think for him, he would really like to see that improve, maybe have more disciplined at bats. I think that's it. I don't think he's a bad hitter, like can't make contact. I think it's more an approach and a mentality he really has to think through his at bats a little better.
All right, let's talk about one of the real success stories from the Tuatara first season. Brandon Macklin came here after playing college, his first professional contract. Played so well that he earned a deal with a major league club. He signed with the Kansas City Royals. He'll be off to minor league spring training this week. I mean, I know you were quite close to Brandon, Canadian native.
Yeah.
So favouritism a little
He
bit.
did play next time.
Tell us about your expectations around Brandon.
It'll be interesting to see. I'd say he's an older guy who's going right into the minor leagues for the first time, so there's no level they can compare him against. I think he's hoping for high A, but low A is an equal possibility, which again, he's just happy to be in the system at this point. So it's his first year. He's going to the Royals, as he said. Him making that decision was he really liked their farm system, he liked their development, so it was his choice, which I think he's really happy with. He was able to make the choice for the team he wanted. So I think he'll be happy with anywhere he gets assigned. I know if he gets assigned to low A, it's a team that's near to where I used to live, so I can heckle him. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, no, it'll be really interesting to see him pitch or try to get the stats out of minor league spring training, because I think it's very much up to him where he ends up.
And of course, outside of America, we've got Daniel Lamb Hunt, goes back to Germany to play in the Bundesliga over there, and he's been consistently one of the best hitters in that competition for the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, I think he was a little bit beat up during the Tuatara campaign. His body wasn't quite where he'd like it to be, and I got a message from him last week saying that he was already feeling like he was getting back to his best shape.
But even in that shape, you've had 280
That was
plus.
tremendous,
He was a
yeah.
elite hitter in this league.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, that first season with the Tuatara, and we're going off topic a little bit here, but that first season with the Tuatara, some of the New Zealand players that had an opportunity in the ABL before, but had never really established themselves as, I guess, everyday players. Max Brown, Daniel Lamb Hunt, Tuatara Bishop to a lesser degree, those guys proved that they're more than capable of being everyday players, but some of the elite players in the game. I mean, Max and Lamb Hunt featured quite prominently on the highest RBIs
And on the pitching side, Jimmy Boyce proved that he can be an ABL pitcher. He definitely showed he was at that level.
Jimmy's stats didn't really
he worked hard
show
for
his
those numbers,
true performance.
No.
I know in the games that I saw him pitch in New Zealand, he's a bull on the pitching mound, and he can stay out there for long periods.
The one stat that does speak a lot is the amount of innings he pitched. He just ate up innings for the team and preserved the bullpen and just had pretty good outings the entire time. There was no time he capitulated. He was there. He was competing the entire way.
Yeah, I call him lion-hearted. I like the way that he would pitch when he was under duress, when there were runners on, and he didn't seem to let the occasion get the better of him. He just grinded out, knuckled down, and you're right. The numbers don't really paint an accurate picture of how well he pitched. And I'm sure he's going to play a fairly prominent role with the Tuatara moving forward. We'll have some more news on the Tuatara in terms of re-signings and all that sort of stuff in due course. Nothing to report just yet, but maybe this time next week, fingers crossed. Let's talk a little bit about Major League, because obviously we are heating up towards the start of the Major League Baseball season. A couple of big stories floating around over the last week or so. Manny Machado, one of the big name free agents, signing, what was it, a 10-year, $300 million deal, 5 years opt-out clause as part of that with the San Diego Padres. We'll start with you, Ian. Are you surprised that he ended up in San Diego?
Oh,
big market team?
I think me and most of the baseball world outside of San Diego are very surprised that he's ended up in San Diego. It's just incredible. It's A-Rod to Texas all over again.
Yeah, that's true.
You go back, how many years ago was that? That was 16 years ago when he signed that big 10-year deal. Only lasted 3 years in Texas. Giancarlo Stanton signed a 13-year deal with the Marlins, only lasted 4 years before the Yankees snapped him up as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether he lasts the 5 years before his opt-out.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing, the fact it's a 5-year opt-out. I don't think anyone's taking this as a 10-year deal. It's very much a 5-year deal at this point.
What do we say, over under 3 years before
It'll be
potential
interesting.
trade?
Although the Padres do have a lot of young, talented players coming up, so you never know. If they turn it around, he could stay, and I think that's, again, the structuring of the clause.
I think the interesting stat for me is the fact that you put Manny Machado and Eric Hosmer's contracts together. They make up 41% of the San Diego Padres' total payroll.
Another interesting thing is he, all of last year, said he was going to play shortstop. If you wanted me, I'm playing shortstop. But he's going to play third base for the Padres. So I guess money talks, changes your mind, or just he liked what he saw with the Padres. I don't know, but it's interesting that he went full 180 and said, okay, I'll play third base now.
Been a little bit of chat around, the free agents not commanding the big dollars and not being the bidding wars that we'd seen in previous years. Are we a little surprised that he's ended up in a small market team and that the big players haven't been able to dish out the best offers?
I think some of the bigger teams are very conscious. They don't want to be, I guess, we've seen it with some of the longer term contracts that have been handed out in recent years. A-Rod got let go 2 years early. Albert Pujols is struggling in his final years. Miguel Cabrera is struggling in his final
Troy
years.
Tulowitzki, another guy
Troy
with a huge
Tulowitzki.
contract.
Biggest on the payroll, isn't it? And just had a home run.
Yeah, on the Blue Jays payroll, hit a home run against the Blue Jays.
Gotta love that, don't you?
Hurts a little on the inside.
I don't think we're going to see too many more long-term contracts handed out. Bryce Harper may get one in the next couple of years. Mike Trout might get one, but he'll be 29 before
Might
he
go
becomes
for
a
the
free agent.
basketball way of just shorter deals.
There'll be a
Huge
lot
money.
more 3 or 4 year term deals with higher annual average value. I think we'll see. And of course, the next couple of years we've got the new collective bargaining agreement coming up.
That's an interesting thing about the Machado deal is the White Sox offered him a deal with a higher annual average value, but it was only 8 years, and he turned that down.
Well, the Nationals offered Bryce Harper over 300
over
million
what he's going to get
for
on
10
the open
years.
market.
So where do we think Harper ends up? I mean, Philly have been talked about as the favourites really from the get-go. They've clearly got some money to spend. They were kicking the tyres on Machado and supposedly in the discussions there. Are they the favourites to sign Harper?
They're definitely up there. I know the Phillies owner flew to Las Vegas, where Bryce Harper's from, to have a sit down, and he said, I'm not going to leave till he signed him. Well, he did leave, and they haven't signed him yet, but he sounded optimistic. I don't know how optimistic you can be without actually signing the guy, but they're definitely, the fact that the owner is showing that much drive to get it done says a lot. I know you were saying he was in Los Angeles recently.
Yes, meeting with the Dodgers this morning, I think, or earlier this morning, New Zealand time. All along I thought he would probably end up at somewhere like the Dodgers. It's close to Las Vegas where he lives. He's always said that he would like to be closer to home. Obviously when teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox sort of showed no interest early on, I think it was probably going to be a slam dunk deal that he was going to end up on the West Coast.
So you're not thinking Philly? You're thinking more likely Dodgers or Giants? Giants supposedly were in the running.
Phillies have been in it the whole way long. If he was going to sign for the Phillies, I think he would have done it by now.
Very true.
That's a good
You
point.
don't usually see him drag on to successful negotiations.
Yes, we will follow this course over the coming days, but it still seems wide open. I know the Giants, a week or so back, there was a lot of talk that the Giants now were one of the major players. The Dodgers obviously this week, and presumably the Nationals and the Phillies aren't going to be giving up anytime soon. So
I think it's really interesting. There's a lot of big name players that, with these two guys commanding most of the attention, they're just off the radar and haven't been signed. Like Craig Kimbrell's arguably one of the best relievers in the game. He's still unsigned. And no one's showing interest at the moment.
we probably should nail our colours to the mast here if we're going to be doing this every week. So you're obviously a Toronto native.
Yeah.
We've got to divulge our team. So
Affiliation.
you're obviously a Blue Jays,
Yeah, a Blue Jays fan and also a bit of
a
a Braves fan.
yeah, so the old Braves fan. What about you?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious who my main team is.
You spent a bit of time with a certain franchise over the last few months.
I did. Yes, my second team, I'm calling them my National League team, is the Arizona Diamondbacks. So, yes, spent a month with them last year and learnt an incredible amount about baseball and how it's run. But yes, I'll be keeping a close eye on them. They've been fairly quiet in the off season. Wilmer Flores from the Mets has been picked up. They've obviously lost. They've lost AJ Pollock to the Dodgers. They've lost Patrick Corbin, who signed with the Nationals after a bit of a roadshow with him. And Paul Goldschmidt's gone.
Sounds wrong, doesn't it?
Who thought that Paul Goldschmidt was going to be a St. Louis Cardinal?
Yeah. I don't know.
For your Yankees, though, I think.
I should probably divulge that I am an Arizona Diamondbacks fan. They're my team. When they had a bit of a rough patch there in the mid-2000s, I started following. It was about sort of hand in hand when the Tampa Bay Rays.
It's the way it goes.
Made a little bit of noise. And I thought, you know what?
You're never
I'll get on board the young, fresh-looking Rays team, and they've shed all their payroll again, so they'll be making up numbers. But I'm hoping Arizona can
Well, they've made a big signing in the off-season.
Who, Tampa Bay?
Yeah.
Yeah. What have they? I'm trying to remember what they've done now. They've what was their biggest free agent signing?
It's gone from big.
Can't be.
I think
we don't remember it.
an underrated signing for the Yankees is James Paxton. I think
Yes.
that everyone's forgotten about that already, but that was a big. I believe it was a trade. It wasn't free agency, but that was a really good acquisition for the team. You got J Happ now there and Paxton. That's a really good front end of the rotation with Severino still there. So
Well, the other talking point coming out of the Yankees is the fact that they're starting to sign some of the younger players to long-term extensions. Severino got one the other day, and just today, Aaron Hicks has been signed to a 7-year extension.
70 million.
Speaking of
So-
young players, what are your thoughts on the kind of
There we go.
what are your thoughts on the just the service clock starting early and how teams are trying to finagle the system a little bit? We saw it last
Vladimir
year.
Guerrero Jr.
Yes, it's very much on my mind, and it was on my mind last year with Ronald Acuna Jr. Do you think something has to be changed in the CBA so we're not holding players who are quite clearly ready back just for financial reasons?
It's not something I've thought of too much. I mean, really, they're only holding them back a month.
Yeah.
And I know the Cubs fans were very upset 2 or 3 years ago when the Cubs held Chris Bryant back after an unbelievable spring training. But, by the time 1st, 2nd of April comes around, he's in the side. So
Yeah, I don't like how people get mad at the team for doing it. It's like, why wouldn't you? You're getting a whole nother year. It's better for your team to do this, but people are like, I don't get the anger.
I think the bigger point about that whole thing is the finagling the time, the arbitration eligible time. And, younger players do miss out on free agency, which, as we mentioned before, is not going to be ever again what it's been like in the last couple of decades.
As you were saying, though, the Yankees, they're starting to sign their young players long-term deal. Do you think that's a solution? Just these really young players, just sign them right away, get that 8-year deal in place, and then you don't have to worry about the service clock. They're your players for that time.
Absolutely, and especially with somebody like Luis Severino, who is the ace of the Yankee staff. He's their number one pitcher. Last year, he only got paid $600,000
Wow.
as the ace of the New York Yankees. That's wrong.
Yeah, that is
That's
wrong.
very wrong. Aaron Judge is only earning around $1 million a year.
Wow.
Just this year, the last couple of years, he's earned less than $1 million. He's the face of the Yankees now.
And the strange thing is you don't see that replicated in the other US pro sports.
In hockey a bit, you have the 3-year rookie deal. Where
You're
it's
certainly not
$900,000.
seeing it in NBA, NFL.
No.
The rookies come in, they earn a contract from the get-go. And
That is a big difference in baseball, and you saw it with Kyler Murray recently. It was a very big debate whether you go to baseball or football, and people were saying, well, go baseball, it's a longer deal, but he went football in the end because it's just guaranteed money up front. Baseball, you're going to toil away in the minors at best case scenario, 1 or 2 years. You're going to be in the minor leagues before you get called up and finally start making good money. A minor league salary is not huge. It's great to play baseball for a living, but you're not a millionaire just playing minor league ball. So it is very much that case of the NFL just hands out those big contracts if you're a top prospect.
Getting away from contracts, the Major League Baseball are trialling a pitch clock in spring training this
see
year.
that.
What are our thoughts on that?
I think they have to do something to speed the pace of play up. It's one of the big talking points, it has been with baseball. If you're trying to keep pace with what the NBA are doing, what the NFL are doing, their popularity, we have to make it more suitable for a modern generation. And whether we like it or not, the modern generation do not like to spend a whole lot of time just sitting and waiting and letting the clock run out.
I know there are some rules that they brought up of introducing in the future, and one that I found interesting and could really change the dynamics of late inning games was relief pitchers have to face 3 batters minimum.
Yes.
So you can't just have that lefty specialist who are coming in. And does that just take away a guy's job with a rule change? It's kind of an interesting...
I like the matchup. I like the playing the lefty-lefty matchup and all that sort of stuff. I don't mind that.
I don't mind that, but I mind them warming up for 5 to 10 minutes each time they switch it out.
Yeah, I think if you're going to make a pitching change now, the onus should be on the bullpen to be ready.
But it's the tough thing where the bullpen mound and the pitching mound are often very different. And it's so maybe they should do something about making those a lot more similar so they can feel more ready.
Yeah, very good
coming
point. Well, we can talk more about Major League Baseball next week. I imagine there'll be a little bit more development in terms of the Harper deal and some other leading free agents. Before we finish, it's obviously approaching the really important stage of the domestic season, getting towards the United Airlines National Club Championships. They start just over a week away, the first one being the under-16s in, and that'll be staged at Port Ellesmore Park in Howard Pakuranga Club. tell us a little bit about what we can expect from the upcoming National Club Championships.
The Under-16 tournament this year is the biggest one we've ever had. There's 14 teams have entered for the Under-16 tournament this year, and that's a result of two very well-attended Under-13 tournaments over the last couple of years. The last 2 years at the United Airlines Under-13 Ripken Championship, we've had 13 teams at both tournaments, and those kids are obviously getting older and they're staying in the game, which is just fantastic.
Yeah.
And seeing 14 teams at an Under-16 tournament is just brilliant. We only had 8 last year, and we thought that was big because previous years it has been a little on the lighter side. So 14 teams, we're actually having to hold it over 2 venues this year. We're going to have games being played at Central City's ground at War Memorial Park. So that will be interesting itself, having 2 venues for a national championship for the first time ever. And then the men's championships is just a week later, the United Airlines Men's Open Championships. It's an open tournament, teams can pick up whoever they like, and obviously we'll see the powerhouses of past will be there. North Shore, Howard Pakuranga have obviously won the most titles in New Zealand. Last year we had an outsider team of Kiwis from Australia came over and took the title away. Unfortunately they're not coming back this year, so it'll be, as I say, 8 teams, only one from outside of Auckland unfortunately, and it's a team coming up from Wellington, which will include one of our Tuatara players, Chris Richards, who is also a National Development Officer in Wellington, so he's got a pretty good solid group together to come up for those national tournaments. A couple of weeks after that, we're back at Rosedale Park in North Harbour for the Under-13 Ripken United Airlines National Championships. A very popular tournament. The last 2 years we've had Sky TV as televised the 3rd and 4th place playoff game and the final. We're hoping that may still happen, but we'll just have to wait and see on that one. And then the final week of tournaments is in the middle of April, and that's the United Airlines Under-19 National Championships. And again, like the Under-16s, that's grown and grown as we've gone on in years. You go back even 4 or 5 years ago, there was only 4 teams in that tournament. So last year we had it up to 10, I think, and we're hoping for a similar number this year. So the age grades are really providing some really good baseball. The talent is really starting to come through, as we're seeing with the numbers turning up now for national selection. So it's an exciting time for baseball over the next month and a bit, and also snuck in between those United Airlines National Club Championships is the National Secondary Schools Championships, which will be held at Lloyd Elsmore Park, and we'll sneak those in between the men's championships and the Under-13 championships. So, and we've got a team from Nelson coming up this year for those. So first time we've got a college team for the senior nationals from outside of Auckland. So that'll be exciting. They're a pretty well prepared team, and Marty Grant, the former softball great, is coaching baseball now with his son Cooper playing, and current New Zealand representative in under-15 age group. So that'll be an exciting tournament. So yeah. Lots happening on the local front.
We look forward to covering off each of those tournaments in greater detail as we lead into each weekend. So next weekend we'll focus a lot more on the Under-16s National Championships. We might have some special guests join us from time to time as well. If you've got any thoughts, feedback, ideas, questions, things you'd like us to cover off in future weeks, feel free to send an email through to info@baseballnewzealand.com, and we'll make sure we get on that and have a look at it. This is the Turning 2 podcast. We do it every week.
Make sure to follow us on all your podcasting channels, Spotify, iTunes, and we'll be on the Auckland Tuatara too.
And if there's ever a chance